They're on ladder 3.
Combi tool?
And ladder 1. We have the combi tool. And what's special on our combi tool? They're not on them right now. They sit right next to them. Does anybody know?
The fork, the hooks,
Yeah, we have.
jaws.
Yeah, we have basically rabbit tips for them. Okay. So there's two different ways of doing this. There's hydraulic ram. We have hydraulic rams. Hydraulic rams theory is you put them in the door and it actually flexes the frame out and destroys the frame. Works really, really well in heavily secured doors, but you kind of got to watch it too, because when you damage a door frame, you can be damaging the wall around it. Who knows? If we've got a really weakened structure, that may be bad. Also, we're doing quite a bit of damage. This is more of a rabbit tool, though ours attaches to a hearse tool. It's got flat blades to get in there and they crush the door. So when you're using a hydraulic door opener, whether it's a small handheld one, so this is an actual handheld pump one, I'll talk about that in a sec, they destroy the door or separate the door from the frame. They don't separate, they don't damage the frame, at least that's got the intention of it. Big disadvantage to the hydraulic ram, it's heavy, you gotta carry it with you, does a lot of destruction. These handheld ones, they're a little bit slower because you actually have to pump them by hand, but they're lightweight. And if you go into a hotel and you're gonna find yourself popping a whole bunch of doors, this may be the way to go, because you may be able to just slide a whole bunch of them past without doing a bunch of damage. Now for us, we don't have these. We've got the ones that go on our hearse tools. So you're gonna wanna be a little gentle because it'll really destroy a door, but it works quite well. Pushing and pulling tools. Okay, so we have some of these, but we don't have all of these. The first are pipe poles. Okay, we have all different lengths of pipe poles. What are our current pipe poles made out of? Fiberglass. This is one of those good learning opportunities to always wear gloves. Because you think that a fiberglass pipe pole is going to hurt you when you're just moving. I don't know how many times I've gone up and had one hooked on a ladder, and I pull it off, and let it slide through my hand. And right then I realized I had made a mistake. Because what have I just done to my hand? Fill it with fiberglass, and you're going to be miserable for a little while. So don't do that too many times before you start remembering to go get gloves. We have lots of different lengths, all the way down to what we call D-handle or closet pipe poles. I've seen a drywall hook, not here. They work pretty slick, but who likes to pull drywall? So we don't ever buy things like that because they're just not cool. I've never seen a San Francisco hook. It's again another tool for pulling it. We do have some rubbish hooks. The ladders each carry a rubbish hook. I don't know if any of the other trucks carry rubbish hooks, but both ladders have a rubbish hook in the back. Those are pretty great for pulling tin. So if you have a barn go down or something and you need to get all the roof off, you can smack those through because they got a little bit of weight behind them.
Yeah, the engines have a problem on the top.
Oh, okay, they're up on the top, okay. Now, everything we've talked about here is a pushing and pulling tool, not a prying tool, except for this last one. So they consider a New York hook a pulling pushing tool. I was actually kind of surprised to read that because I would have told you, no, it's a prying tool, it's the best tool, it's a do everything tool, okay? But we do have those, and we have lots of those now, and they're a great tool. The thing to remember though, is most of these are non-conductive. So if we were to punch it through and hit something electrical, it's not going to transfer through. The New York hook though is metal. So you really want to be careful working around electricity with a New York hook. Striking tools. Sledgehammers. Sledgehammers, we have mainly 8-pound sledgehammers here. I can't remember what you can get them in. I think you can get them in all the way up to a 16-pound sledgehammer. Mauls, which are smaller handheld sledgehammers, mallets, hammers, chisels, punches, battering rams, flathead axes, and picks. We don't carry too much of this stuff. Our go-to striking tool is our pigs or our flathead axes, followed by a sledgehammer. Okay, we are not a battering ram fire department. Battering rams are, I guess, great in some areas. We're usually doing this kind of forcible entry for a fire, and the last thing we want to do is use a battering ram, because how are you going to control that door afterwards? you may take it off its hinges, okay? Other things do come up, we do carry punches. We used to use those to take out a lot of windows. Remember, that's gonna slowly go away, and we're gonna have to start buzzing those windows out when we do cars. And we don't really use the rest. We do have hammers and stuff like that on our trucks. So, we're gonna talk about carrying some tools and at least combining some tools. For this class, we're just gonna kind of go to the basics of marrying up the irons. We buy the nice Fire Hooks Unlimited axes. They have the grooves already cut into them. I'm gonna try to not mess up our floor, but basically, just remember, you can hook them together, give them a smack down, not have to vacuum, and then you can carry them together. Ideally, try to carry them outward so you don't trip, fall, and stab yourself. Take them apart, turn them back over, and they come back apart. They do stick pretty well together. If you guys want to, afterwards in like a fancier class, there are some ways you can marry these to New York hooks. There's a lot of guys now that are carrying a New York hook and a Halligan. You can do some fancy stuff where you marry them together, give yourself a ton more prying force, and they also have some fancy techniques for actually driving a Halligan with a New York hook. So, what are 5 of the tools most commonly used to force entry? Can anybody think of any of the tools we've talked about? Halligan. Halligan is our go-to. Axe, flathead axe, pry bar. K-12, okay. You know, Jeff City's got some old buildings in it. Some of those old buildings, they were well built. And I have seen some people struggle real hard with some of the older construction, the new lightweight stuff. The last door I took, I went in to sound it and accidentally knocked the door through the drywall, okay? So the whole door frame came out. You don't do that in the old buildings that are made out of stone downtown. Let's see how we've been going. We'll do a little bit more and then we'll take a quick 10-minute break. So we're going to talk about considerations for forcible entry tool safety. Not using tools correctly can result in injury. The most common are strains, sprains, fractures, abrasions, and lacerations. Who here has ever hurt themselves forcing doors? I have been hit once by somebody with an axe. We're going to not do that today. There's a lot of trust when we force doors. You got somebody swinging an 8-pound axe at your head. Just remember good body positions, good body mechanics. We don't want to hurt ourselves. And I think I'll say this, the older we get, the more prone we are to injury. I'm starting to find out in life. Ways we can prevent those though, wear appropriate PPE, wear your glasses, wear your goggles, wear your gloves, okay? Always make sure your tools are undamaged and in good shape. If we have a whole bunch of little pieces of metal flaking off, we need to do something about that. File them down, get them ready to go. We don't want things coming off and hitting us. Select the right tool. Use a striking tool to strike, use a prying tool to pry. We kind of talked about that. We're firefighters though, and I know that anybody will use anything they can to hit something. I see you guys do that with portable radios all the time. Again, we talked about using tools for their intended purpose. Position yourself so your weight is on both feet, okay? We don't want to fall over backwards. A lot of these tools are sharp. That's how people get hurt. Ensure you have room to operate the tool properly. Now this is, for this class, ideally. Sometimes when you're in a hallway, or especially if you're trying to get into one of the pit-style walk-up basements, you're working in really tight quarters. But for this, try to give yourself the appropriate space, or maybe go get a tool that's better situated for the job. If you're down in an area and you're trying to get a New York hook in to marry into a Halligan because you need so much space to pry because it's taking so much force to get that door, go get the spreaders. You know, it'll be a lot safer. Let the spreaders do the work. Be aware of sudden energy releasing from the door when it's open. I think we've all seen people, especially in extrications, when we're forcing the door, go put their butt against it. I've never seen anybody get really hurt from it, but I have seen people go flying a few feet. That's just asking for trouble. Let the door pop on its own. If you're really worried about it, maybe use a piece of webbing, secure it back to something else that's not you. Keep people out of the way, okay? That's other crews, and that's most definitely bystanders. Be aware of the area around you, be aware of the environment in which you're operating, both for flammable gases and for possible issues with carbon monoxide. Things we do is become familiar with all of the tools that we will use. You guys at this point in your career should all know how to force a door. We are going to review how to force a door. But again, sometimes it's the little things that are simple like that that we tend to forget. We need to keep our tools in proper locations, both in the trucks, because everybody needs to know where to get it when we need it fast, but also on scene. Remember, we got our little action zones. We don't want to leave our Halligan laying right outside the front door. Once we go inside, we're going to have a tripping hazard. Also, you should take that with you. Make sure our tools are secure. It is against policy of the fire department to carry loose tools inside the cab with us. That's why they're located outside where we can easily get them. I think you'll see that the next set of trucks we buy, we may get the little fancy tool compartments off on the side, so right when you open the door, they're down there. That's what a lot of departments are going to. It's pretty nice. Repair or replace damaged tools immediately. After we use tools, we should be coming back and policing them, making sure they're ready to go, cleaning them, polishing them, painting them, whatever we have to do. You know, there are very few tools that I really think might save my life if you're ever trapped in something, but a Halligan's one of them. Because I think everybody has their own favorite tool that they use. Halligan's mine, because I feel like I can get through most doors even if I don't have an axe with a Halligan. It may take me a little bit longer if I don't have an axe, but so I try to really take care of those. Do not strike the tool's handle or use a cheater bar. This is fiberglass. If you hit this with another striking tool, you're just going to damage the handle and you're going to use its ability to function. We also don't use cheater bars. We don't like to overdrive what a tool can do. There are smart people out there that when they say, hey, I'm going to make this tool this long, that's so it has a maximum amount of force it can take. There's a reason why Halligans are 30 to 36 inches and not 6 foot long, because they have to be a larger gauge metal. That's why the BACs are so thick, because they can pry so much more. We've talked about it. Do not use a prying tool as a striking tool unless it's designed to do so. It's kind of an advanced level thing, but you can use a New York book in some instances, though it's not actually designed for that. If you go to some of those higher end classes, they'll show you guys how to do that. That's not something that we normally do here or teach here. We've touched on it. We'll keep talking about it though. Match the saw blades to the task and material to be cut. Okay, what kind of K-12 blade do we use when we cut metal? Does anybody know that?
We can use the diamond or we can use the composite.
Yeah, traditionally we use the composite.
Don't cut aluminum with the diamond blade.
Do you remember why?
Because it gums it up.
Because it gums it up. You will have little pieces, because it takes big chunks out of it, and it kind of, I think it looks like confetti. So, never force a saw beyond its design limitations. The more you pull a saw, the more it bogs down, and the more likely it is to become wedged. And that's a bad day, especially if you're over an active fire, and then you have to be like, well, we got the saw stuck, and then the fire kept going, and now the saw's gone. But the saw's not stuck anymore, it's just down in the fire. Always wear your full PPE. One, it protects us, but two, especially if we're cutting around an area that may be on fire, there may not be a lot of smoke. Once you start cutting, there may be a lot of smoke. One thing that they never taught me in training, and it wasn't until I actually invented my first fire, gas-powered saws need oxygen to run. Once you start catching a whole bunch of smoke in one of those saws,
Shut down.
they will shut down. Okay, so sometimes you start bogging down, lift them up, get them out of the smoke, grab them a little bit, let them get good and going, then go back into cutting. I feel like that's something we really forget to teach people in training, so I always try to preach on it. Fully inspect your saws before and after. Clean them. Make sure that they still have all the carbide teeth. I know the carbide chains are expensive, but we need to really kind of get on people to replace those. You know, well, they still have most of them. Okay, well, I'll remember that when we're trying to cut through something really important. Well, it has most of its teeth there. Again, do not use power saws in a flammable atmosphere or near flammable liquids. Now, they are filled with gas. Be very careful when you pour them, especially once they're hot, okay? Sometimes we have to do that. Ideally, you let a saw cool before you refill it. But again, we're doing a lot of this through quick cycles, and sometimes you gotta keep refilling them. Maintain situational awareness. It's really easy to get tunnel vision when you're cutting a roof. Always have a buddy. Maybe your buddy can be watching your back and watching around. In fact, it's ideal. We always do things in teams. Keep unprotected and non-essential people out of the work area, especially the work area below you. Okay? And if they're not one of us or in emergency services, they need to be well away from the scene. Stuff can go flying a long ways, especially with a lot of the force when we're using some of these hydraulic tools. Follow the manufacturer's guideline for operations. One thing with these saws, the K12s, they can operate up to 6,000 RPMs. Okay, so you've got to make sure that the blade you're using, one, fits that saw, but can also take the RPMs that saw is supposed to put out. Because if you put a blade on that's rated for a max of 3,000 RPMs and spin it up to 6,000 RPMs, you're going to have a bad day, or somebody's going to have a bad day. Hopefully it doesn't kill you, hopefully it just blows up and scares you. Be aware of hidden hazards, okay? As you're cutting, if you start to feel too much resistance, stop. Make an inspection hole, see what's going on. Inspection holes are always a good thing. We don't always have time for them, but you don't know what's below it. Especially too with ventilation, maybe another layer of roof. Maybe that there is somebody slumped up against the door, and I think I'm going to be cool and use this K12 to force this door, and I injure a patient, okay? Be very careful. Maintain situational awareness. Look behind the doors. We talked about using blades only assigned or approved for your saw. I think we've all used a K12 at this point, but the weird little rotation it does, yeah, the gyro, you just have to be ready for that, know it's going to do it. Because when we go into cut, we're going to start those cuts at full RPM. We don't want to do them partial because, again, that allows the saw to bog down and bite into the material, and sometimes it's wedged. These saws are heavy enough, a lot of times we're using them over our heads. We want these cuts to go smooth. Store our blades in a clean, dry environment. Most of our blades are in the truck, okay? But we don't keep the fuel in there with them. Some of these composite blades can break down if they're exposed to fuel vapors too much. So, what actions can a firefighter take to stay safe while performing forcible entry?
Wearing all their PPE.
Wearing all their PPE. I'm glad you said that, because that's the most important one. What else?
Use tools properly.
Use our tools properly. Clean our tools. Inspect things. Situational awareness. So why don't we take a 9-minute break, and you guys go to the bathroom, do whatever, and we will come back. It's 11:34, so we will come back at 11:43, finish up, and then take our test.